Well, good morning, everybody. How are you this morning? I'm Jim Nash. I'm state representative from District 47A, which is Carver County, or we call it God's country. Sorry about that. Trying to laugh a little bit. Everyone's serious this morning. Just trying to bring a bill today that I think addresses a problem or a concern that I've heard from many people around the state from both parties, and it really ties into my professional background in IT. And the bill does the following. It creates a situation where if MN.IT is going to be doing some sort of enterprise software moving forward, that this bill would require that they first go to RFP and they put out a proposal into the private sector to see if there's a commercially available piece of software. And if that's the case, and it is something that fits the need and is roughly customizable to work for the problem that we have at hand, that we move forward with that. The bill also provides a mechanism that if there isn't, that the legislature can appropriate funds for it. So it's not being punitive to MN.IT at all, but I think what I've heard from people around the state is that they're looking for guardrails and process and procedure to be brought into the creation of software at the state level. And as you see in the press release, this is something that when you use a piece of software from a large vendor in the private sector, that they have it well designed, locked down, lots of process and procedures went into creating the piece of software, and it just works. And that, as an IT guy, is probably our first mantra is, it just works. And I want to make sure that moving forward that we have put these things into process and procedure for the state so that when we do software, and we're going to do software, and I think that it's important for our state to stay current and sometimes even maybe being on the leading edge, but software has to work when you stand it up. And I think that this provides a very good mechanism so that the people of Minnesota can look at whatever software it may be, because we don't know what it'll be 5 years from now, but that this puts those things in place to make sure that it's gone through all the proper procedures and it's been properly vetted and that there are no surprises, because we've seen, and you all have covered, a fair number of surprises in the last number of weeks. So it's a very popular bill, and as you all know from being insiders, the jacket is completely full. It has every signature line filled. So it's a very popular bill, and when it goes live later today, I don't know what the number is, but we will soon. I hope that it goes quickly through the committee process, comes to the floor, has wide bipartisan support, and that the governor will sign it, because I think what the average Minnesotan is going to say is we just want to know that the money that we spend for the software that we need at the state level is going to work, and that we don't spend extra money building it internally if there is a commercially available piece of software in existence. So I know my colleague, Representative Bennett, has a few things to say, and then we'll take questions afterwards.
Thank you. Well, good morning, everybody, and thanks for being here. And I am excited about this bill. I am one of those lines that you held up there, Representative Nash. I'm from Albert Lea, and I know my constituents and all the constituents throughout the state want us to make sure that we're spending Minnesota's money, their tax money, wisely and responsibly. That is one of my main jobs as a legislator. And so that's why I've signed on to this bill. I think it only makes sense that we utilize software that's already out there if it's there and it's proven effective, because that's a good way to keep our costs down and to make sure that things are working well for Minnesota. So I'm excited about this bill. I'm excited about bringing more responsibility and accountability to any of our state agencies, because that's what we should be doing. So thank you again for being here.
Okay, questions?
Representative, perhaps you can shed light on this, but isn't this one of the reasons the state got into this mess, because we had a private developer developing this system, HP? Am I right about that?
Well, Pat, I just want to make sure that I'm talking about software moving forward, and we have heard from people all over the state that they want to be able to say, when did things start? Did we go to RFP? Did we have a private vendor? And as you know, that there's a lot of we can't see what happened with HP because of non-disparaging, non-disclosure. So what I want to make sure moving forward is that any piece of software, whether it's a large piece of enterprise software or something small, that we look first for what is commercially available. So I think that maybe things that we've learned from past experiences, say let's make sure that it has gone through all the possibilities of what may exist out there, and then move forward to internally develop if it's necessary.
And would it require the state to accept the commercially available?
It has to be able to meet the needs and be something that is essentially built for the task at hand and have some ability to be customized. That is the goal. And this plays very well into another bill that I have moving through the process, which is a legislative commission for IT oversight. I want IT leaders from around the state to also come and work with the legislature, because there's only 3 of us that are in IT in the House and maybe a couple over in the Senate. And I want all of my fellow legislators to feel like they know enough about IT to move forward and make informed decisions. So that, along with this, I think really creates an opportunity for people in the state of Minnesota to see that we're listening and we're creating guidelines so that we do it right from out of the gate.
Earlier today, we heard from some state senators who want to disband MN.IT as we know it and move it into the Department of Administration. What do you think of that idea?
We don't know where that will go, but this bill would create those guardrails for whatever state IT might look like. And that's my goal. I'm trying to find a very easy to implement, reasonable approach so that moving forward, whatever entity does IT at the state will have these process and procedures in place.
Coming from an IT background, do you see the merit in a centralized IT agency, or do you think that it should be kind of, again, parceled back out to the individual agencies to manage their own individual projects?
That's a great question. I think that if you look in the private sector and you look at other areas that have consolidated IT, and I've been on record as saying that I think the idea of MN.IT is a good one. Previously we had up to 70 some odd different IT agencies working out there. There's a lot of duplicative effort there. So having a consolidated IT, I think, is a smart idea. Properly implemented and fully implemented, because we're still not there yet. We haven't consolidated down to 6 data centers. We're still at 24. There's a long way to go, but the idea of MN.IT in a consolidated IT environment is a good one.
What about your bill? You mentioned this is bipartisan and your bill jacket's full. Do you have Democratic authors, and if so, who?
I am hoping to do a clone bill that will get Democrat support. We did this, I offered it up in GOP caucus, and the jacket filled up so quickly that I was unable to get Democrats on board.
Representative, again, as one of the few IT guys in the legislature, do you know what happened with MNLARS, that the governor needs $10 million immediately?
Well, good question. Good question. We're going to talk about that later tonight in state government finance, so I'd encourage you to be there. But I think that if you look at the questions that were sent out by Chair Baker and Chair Torkelson, there was an answer that said that there was a fundamental disregard for the underlying architecture. And what that means in non-IT nerd speak is, and I've used this example, let's say Mary decides to build a great new lake home and she gets an architect to draw the drawings, and they wanted the master bedroom to overlook the lake. And everybody agreed, that was great, move forward. But when you hand it off to the builder says, nah, I got this, I know better. I'm going to put it in the front because I think that the aesthetics of the front of the building are way nicer, so we're gonna put the master bedroom there. When they said that there was a fundamental disregard for the underlying architecture, that's what that means, is that they looked at the architecture, they said, well, we're going to do our own thing. And I think that that's some of the places where the wheels fell off the bus.
That's an emergency right now.
Well,
That they
if
need
we're-
$10 million right now, or people get laid off.
Well, those are separate issues, I'd say. If we're going to fix the problem, we have to have people to fix the problem. I want to make sure that we also have process and procedures in place and a defined method to do so. And I had a person from the project in my office, and I'm not going to say who it was, but I asked them, why haven't we seen a very detailed blueprint of putting guardrails in place saying we're going to do this and this and this? We haven't seen that yet. That's what I'm looking for as an IT guy, is here are the problems that we have at hand, and here is a very granular approach to how do we get to a finished product. And I think that this bill, along with my other bill that I talked about to create that committee, is really going to be able to drive what we need as legislators. Before we vote to appropriate money, hundreds of millions of dollars have been spent on different projects over the years. I think that the taxpayer who sends us here to appropriate that money should have a reasonable expectation that we're looking at agencies to create good product and that we're going to put boundaries around them like this to make sure that we do.
As an IT guy, why is this so hard? There have to be other states that are doing electronic licensing systems. Can't we use one of theirs?
Well, now you're just making my argument for me. I think that is sort of the genesis of this bill is before we decide to go out and invent something completely on our own, let's first look for what other solutions may exist. And there are a good number of solutions for enterprise software that other states are using that we don't currently have. And Mary, that's why this bill is written in the way it is. It's not prescriptive. It's not trying to take power out of anybody's hands. It's saying before you embark on something that you completely scratch build software, let's first go out and make sure that we've exhausted the commercially available options.
This says that unless money is expressly appropriated, all state information and telecommunication tech project must be developed, designed, and built through a vendor contract.
Correct.
In other words, if they're they have to go out for an RFP, and if they decide that they don't like it and want to develop in-house, they need your permission, lawmakers, legislators' permission first.
And ultimately, they would have to come to us for budget anyway. So I think that this, again, adds another level of scrutiny, some additional eyes. You know, if you look at the 201 of us that serve in office, we all bring good questions to bear, and I think that in that process, we're able to do just that, ask good questions, make sure that we've done our due diligence, and make sure that we're going to spend money wisely.
That kind of did happen with MNLARS, though, anyways, didn't it? I mean, it sounds like what you're saying is, okay, this may not have eliminated the MNLARS problem if this were in place, but moving forward, this is just a smarter way to go.
I think this is just a smarter way to go moving forward. Again, this is not here to fix anything relative to MNLARS. That's a problem in and of itself, and it's all on its own. But being an IT guy, I see that there is a need to put in some process and procedures, and that's why we have this bill today.
It's easy to see some potential hurdles if, you know, an RFP goes out and MN.IT doesn't like it and they need to come back to the legislature. It's easy to see some problems with project scheduling and budget. I mean, the legislature is not really a fast-moving place. Is there any kind of mechanism for MN.IT to get approval if an RFP comes back in the summer when you guys are long gone?
Well, here's what I know about software. There's very infrequently that there's emergency needs to develop software. No one's house is going to burn down if we have software that might need to be replaced, but it may take longer. And again, what I have heard from people across the state is, let's get it right before we even go down that road. So if it's that we need more time, I mean, the piece of software that's being replaced was still operational, and it was 35 years old. And there was no burning need to stand it down and stand MNLARS up. It could have gone on a little bit longer. So, I mean, please don't confuse this bill with the problem that you're bringing to light right now. It's moving forward, we need to make sure that we're spending money wisely on a good piece of software so that the people of Minnesota can interact with it and not have a problem and not have to come back for additional funds that go beyond the original scope.
Anything else?
Thanks, everyone. Thank you all.